Greetings from wherever you're viewing this. My name is Dr. Ryan Pettengill, and if you're watching this video right now, it can only mean that you have enrolled in an online class at Dallas College. I'm going to be your professor for the semester, and I want to take this opportunity not only to introduce myself, but also to go through some of the guidelines, expectations, and requirements. Now, the most important thing that we're going to be doing here with this video is going through the syllabus. So if you have not yet done so, what I recommend that you do is go ahead and download the copy of the syllabus so that you can follow along with me line by line as we go through it. You can go ahead and put me on pause. To find the syllabus, just click on the Start Here button of Blackboard. It should be the very first thing that pops up on you. So put me on pause and meet me back here when you've got that thing downloaded. Okay, so in a class like this, the most important thing is going to be communication. It's a relatively quick turnaround here, and if you have an issue, the sooner I know about that, the more options that I have to sort of get through that issue, help you get through it together, okay? So the best way to communicate with me is through email. If you're looking at the syllabus, I check that email address very, very regularly. And if you get me a message Monday through Thursday before 3 o'clock, there's a good chance that I respond on the same day. If it's after 3 or if it's on the weekends, it will be a little bit slower, but I take every opportunity to answer your questions in a timely manner. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. You also see a phone number underneath the email address. If you call that number, I may pick up. If I don't pick up, please leave me a voicemail and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Now, if you do leave me a voicemail, don't be surprised if what comes back at you is an email. A lot of times that's just quicker for both of us. On the first page of that syllabus, you will see some important items, including the course name, the course section number, some important dates, including the last day to withdraw. You'll also see some prerequisites, but I want to draw your attention, it's actually at the top of the second page of the syllabus, to the course description. History 1301 is the first half of the U.S. History Survey, or in other words, early American history, okay? I can't really give you a great time when our class will begin. You'll see what I mean once you begin watching the lectures. What I can tell you is that it will begin before Europeans start showing up in the Western Hemisphere. What I'm saying here, guys, is that we're going to be going through pre-Columbian Native American societies, and we'll be going through them relatively thoroughly. I believe that one of the things that often gets lost in the process that is American history are the people that were native to the Americas before Europeans and other transplants began showing up. In any case, I can be much more specific in terms of our end date. Our end date will be 1877, and by the time that the semester ends, you'll know exactly why that's such an important date and why so many history classes stop in 1877, and then the more modern American history classes begin in 1877. What will we be talking about? Well, I'm pretty safe in saying all the usual suspects, and by that I mean both individuals, but also events, concepts, and ideas. Naturally, we'll talk about things like the Revolutionary War, and we'll discuss George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and what I like to call the great white men version of history, but we'll also talk about individuals that don't often make their way into history classes, or in some cases even history books. Quick example, one of the first major assignments is going to be reading a book by a guy named Frederick Douglass. And he might be the most important person, certainly one of the leading voices in the movement to abolish the institution of slavery. We'll talk about how he sees that institution as a system that victimizes everybody involved, even the slave owners, okay? Frederick Douglass is going to play a massive role in producing what you and I think of as equality, okay? Not necessarily just freedom, but equality as well. Another one of my favorite individuals that I like to talk about in this class is a woman from the Massachusetts area named Anne Hutchinson. Anne Hutchinson is a Puritan woman, and the reason that it's important to know that she's a Puritan is that she's very much a product of the old world where women were expected to know their places, okay? Women were essentially seen, but not necessarily supposed to be heard from. And as you're going to find out, she gets herself into trouble for conducting what we would call Bible study, okay? What could be so wrong about a woman conducting Bible study in a deeply religious society? Well, the fact was she was conducting Bible study with men and women sitting side by side, and at the time that was considered lewd and indecent behavior. And when the governor of the colony said, "Stop it," or, "bad things will happen to you," she said that she answered to a higher power, okay? And so, this might not really be all that impactful right now, but you're going to see how people like Anne Hutchinson inform this idea that we have of equality by proclaiming to the governor, "All souls are created equal. And if God called upon my soul to, conduct Bible study, then who are you to tell me that he is wrong?" Okay? Again, probably sounds a little bit abstract right now, but you'll see what I mean when it comes to equality over the course of time. Now, there's all kinds of different things that we'll be talking about over the course of this semester, but we don't have time to talk about them right here. You'll see a little bit more about what I mean once we get to the course schedule of this syllabus. I'm going to leave a lot of the reading of this syllabus to you in the sense that the student learning outcomes, the core objectives, and much of the required course materials can be read on your own time. What I want to really point out would be the books that you need for this class, okay? Now, here's the good news, everybody. You already have a copy of every book that you need. In some cases, you've got 2 copies, and I'll explain that here in a second. But for right now, to find and access these books, what you need to do is click the Learning Materials button of Blackboard, and there'll be a link in there that says Access My Learning Materials, and it will give you a copy of all the books that you see listed there in the middle of page 3, starting with Sources for America's History by Kevin Sheets, okay? So that's available there in the Learning Materials tab of Blackboard. You can go ahead and access that as soon as you'd like. You also need a book entitled My Bondage and My Freedom by Frederick Douglass. You can get a copy of that in the Learning Materials tab of Blackboard, or you can go to the Course Information button of Blackboard and open up the Online Text folder. You'll see that there's a PDF copy there. You're free to use whatever copy that you would like. For the good of the order, you're also free to go to a local bookstore and buy one or all of these books and read it in the paperback fashion. If you're old-fashioned like me and you prefer a paper book in your hand, that might be a better option for you, and you're certainly welcome to do that if you'd like. The last book that's required for this class would be a book entitled Sam Patch, the Famous Jumper by Paul E. Johnson. Once again, that book is available both in the Course Information button of Blackboard, Online Text folder, but it's also available in the Learning Materials tab of Blackboard, okay? Those are the only books that you need. We won't be using anything else. If you scroll down a little bit further on page 3, you will see a summary of the assignments, and I'll be talking about these in much more depth here in a second. But you're going to find out that we've got a combination of discussion forums, which I refer to as participation. That's how you participate in the class. There will be 6 quizzes throughout the semester. You will have 2 papers, both of which have a 2-page minimum and a 3-page maximum. There will be a midterm exam, and there will be a final exam. If you look at that second column, you will see how many of those assignments that we have and how much each assignment is worth for their totals. If you scroll down just a little bit further, you can see a section entitled Final Grade. That's my grading scale. Now, I don't want you to get the idea that if I have someone with a 79.5967431, do I give them a C because technically that's where they are in the class? No, generally speaking, I round up, especially if that student's been diligent and worked hard and attended office hours, and you get the idea. I don't want you to get the idea that a 79 somehow, some way is going to translate into an A, because as you can see, it's quite a ways away from the cutoff for an A. The reason that I tell you this is I want us to all be on the same page, but more importantly, I want you to understand, right? Close enough is not good enough. What you need to do if you want a very good grade for this class is you need to work hard. But the good news there is there's lots of ways that you can work smarter and not necessarily harder. And let me explain what I mean by that right now, okay? Remember me talking just a second ago about participation? Again, those are the discussion forums. And this is probably the easiest thing that you can do to rack up a lot of points in this class, okay? Almost each week, not each week, but almost each week, you're going to have one discussion forum that is due, okay? They will typically be due on Friday, but if you have another major assignment that's also due that week, I'll tend to give you an extra day and it'll be due on a Saturday, okay? But look for these things to be due on a Friday. If you're looking for what I'm talking about right now, click on the discussions button of Blackboard. And what you're going to see are 5 preloaded discussion forums. You're welcome to do all of them this weekend if you want to. I really wouldn't recommend that, but if you wanted to do that, you could. Now, as you can see, each of them have a central question. And in many cases, it's going to ask you to refer to a chapter of Sources for America's History or a specific document within Sources for America's History to answer that central question. Many times you'll be given a choice. You don't have to refer to one specific document, right? You can choose your own documents. What I look for when I grade the discussion forums, right? I look for whether or not you took this question serious. Did you actually stop and think about this, or did you write the first thing that came to your mind? And I also look for whether or not I feel like you seriously went through this chapter, okay? Did you actually take a look at the things that I asked you to read, or did you just not, okay? But the fact is, I kind of look at this the same way your high school English teacher asked you to keep a journal, right? Right? If you're like me in high school, we had to keep a journal, and it was just a way to practice writing a little bit, but every day, okay? As long as I can see you doing it, just like as long as, my English teacher saw me doing it, generally speaking, I give you full credit for that part of the class. So again, this is an easy way to rack up 15 points of credit, and it's not going to cost you an awful lot. The biggest challenge, keep an eye on the due date. Again, Fridays are really going to be important days in this class, and mostly because the discussion forums are due on Friday. The second easiest thing that you can do to rack up a lot of points would be your take-home quizzes. You're going to see 6 of these assignments throughout the course of the semester, but you're only responsible for 5, okay? What that means is if you miss quiz 3, for example, you essentially have a get-out-of-jail-free card, okay? If you miss quiz 3 and you do quizzes 4, 5, and 6, you can still earn a potential of 15 points out of a possibility of 15 points. So I know what you're thinking. What happens if you do all 6 and you score 3 out of 3 for each one of them? 3 points of extra credit, okay? Again, these things are not hard. They're open book, they're open note, and as long as I don't get a word-for-word verbatim response, you're free to work on them collectively as well, okay? In most cases, it's going to have a document or maybe even a couple documents that are right underneath the quiz in Blackboard, And what you'll do is you'll use that document to help you answer the central question posed by the quiz, okay? Once again, not a lot of heavy lifting and a big opportunity to rack up some serious points in this class. I will be honest, the papers are heavier lifting. They just are, okay? The good news is I'm going to give you a lot of help as those due dates approach. Throughout the course of the semester, you're going to have 2 papers that will be due. Again, typically they will be due on Friday, but they're going to be a 2-page minimum and a 3-page maximum. You'll double space everything, you'll use normal 1-inch margins with everything, you'll use 12-point font with everything, okay? And once again, there will be more helpful resources that at least nudge you in the right direction with respect to engaging the central question, and you'll see what I mean once we get closer to that part of the class. Lastly, there is one midterm exam. It will consist of a combination of multiple choice questions, short written essay questions, and one long essay question. And there's also going to be a final exam, which, very similar to the midterm, is a combination of multiple choice, short answer essay, and one long essay question. You can begin preparing for these things right now if you wanted to. If you clicked on the exams button of Blackboard, you will note that there is a midterm review guide and there's also a final exam review guide, which are study tools to help you prepare for these things. Both the midterm as well as the final are worth 25 points per exam for your cumulative grade. The class consists of a 100-point scale. It's pretty simple, which means that it's pretty easy to figure out exactly where you are at any point in the class. Here's some fine print, okay? It's not really fine print because it says so right there in black and white in the syllabus, but the late work policy, once a discussion forum due date passes, once a quiz due date passes, it's gone for good and it's going to translate into a 0. So again, keep an eye on those due dates. If I were you, I would check into Blackboard at least once a day. And that's not me telling you this because I want you to prioritize my class. It's me telling you this so that you can stay on top of things and get out in front of them, okay? I will accept a late paper, but keep in mind there will be a penalty if you turn it in late. If you miss an exam, the onus is on you to find a time with me to make that back up, okay? At this point, what I'd like you to do is scroll down to page 6 of the syllabus. I want to talk a little bit about the course schedule. This is also a one-stop shop to find out what's important, what you need to do, and when you need to complete it by for this class. So let's just use week 1 as an example, okay? You can see the dates listed next to week 1. And then in the next column, you see the topic, what we'll be talking about very generally. Next to the topic, you see the reading assignment. So you can see that you need to read some chapters and sources for America's history. And you also need to watch video lectures, okay? Now, the video lectures can be found in the Content button of Blackboard. Click on Content, and then what you will find are 2 folders, one which is entitled Video Lectures. Video lectures, the first few are right there in Unit 1, and if you open it up, you will see that they're numbered, okay? You will also see underneath each video link, for example, Video Lecture 1, you see a collection of terms, okay? Those are the key important points of my lecture. Those are the ideas, concepts, individuals, and events that I need you to have a good understanding of. The main points of my lecture, you need to know them before the lecture ends. One reason that I do this is if you keep up with these terms, right, you'll know that you're getting out of my lectures what I want you and what I need you to get out of my lectures. You'll also have a much better time navigating your way through the exam. So watch those video lectures, all right? Next to the reading assignment, you will see the writing assignment. So for example, in week 1, you can see that we've got quiz 1 that's going to be due in the middle of the week, And then we've got discussion forum 1 that's going to be due at the end of the week. Now, we don't need to take this through on a week-by-week basis because this is spelled out pretty simply, okay? So even if you don't check Blackboard, even if you just refer to this course schedule in the syllabus, this is a great way to stay on top of the due dates for this class. That's all I really have in the way of introductions. I hope that this has been helpful. And while I'm on the issue of helping, I think that if you were to watch the video entitled How to Succeed in This Class, it will also go a long way with respect to understanding how you can really maximize your performance. So that's where I'll leave it. If you have a question, you know how to get a hold of me.